So I was going to reach out to my bank uh, soon. I bank with Chase Bank, and I was going to see if they didn't mind actually that this past month or this next month, I was planning on going over my budget and using more money than I had allowed. But it's not a big deal because I only went over on groceries. So it doesn't, it's at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because it's just groceries and food, and it doesn't actually affect my other bills and my other
Mm,
finances because those all got paid. But
mm,
the groceries I had to go over. So
yeah.
yeah, Chase Bank, if you're listening to this, hope it's not a big deal. Hope you don't mind. I spent more money than I had, spent more money than I was allowed to. Yeah, that's all. We can get into the episode.
Welcome back to Break Check. It is episode 32. We'll be going over Haas F1. So we'll be going over some history on that team and the drivers. We'll also be going over some new news and a little fun TikTok bit. So very excited for that. Don't know how it's going to turn out. But how was your weekend, Juan?
Weekend was really good. We are finally kind of like settled in to the apartment. We've been here about a month now, so we're starting to get in routines. Have some off time on the weekends. We have most of our big furniture. I think all we're missing is a coffee table now. But I went to a pumpkin patch, a haunted
Oh,
tractor ride. Um, I went into a haunted barn, which was a lot more intense than I expected. And then Sunday we just kind of hung out, got ready for the week, did some cleaning. I went to the gym this morning. I worked out, came back, showered, walked my girlfriend to the train. I'm here recording. I started my workday already. I'm feeling great today.
wow. Just so productive on this
Yep.
Monday.
It's a beautiful day, beautiful fall day.
See, that's one thing I do miss being here is all those like fun fall activities. I don't feel like, especially in London, they're not as common. I'm sure there'll be like some Halloween stuff, but those, pumpkin patches, the little Jerry Smith cookies, or which Jerry Smith, for anyone that doesn't know, it's just like a little pumpkin farm near
Mm-hmm.
where I grew up. So everyone is like, they're known for their sugar cookies. So yeah, very, very much miss that stuff. But
Do you want to hear something blasphemous?
hmm.
So I won't say the name of the town for reasons, obviously, but I lived in Megan's hometown for about 7 years, and I never once went to Jerry Smith Pumpkin
You
Farm.
never went,
No,
really?
I never got there. I've heard good things.
Wow. Yeah, it's fun. They have like a
Yeah.
little petting zoo and stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
How
yeah,
was your
my
weekend?
weekend, it was I'm trying to remember what I all did. Friday was pretty much just errands and stuff. I don't have classes on Friday, so it's usually kind of like my get stuff done day, whether it's catching up on schoolwork or just getting things done. We're like starting to settle into the apartment more. We've been here for almost like a month and a half now, but we in the kitchen we have a couch, chairs, and a table, and that's it. So we don't have anything really yet for that. But Saturday I went to Borough Market with some college friends, which was really fun. We checked out this raclette place, very good. Highly recommend it if you're ever in Borough Market.
Is that the
And then
cheese that was on your
yeah,
Instagram
when it like
story?
melts and then they like
Yeah.
shred it and
Okay.
they put it on baby potatoes and some
Ooh,
pickled cucumbers,
ooh.
so pickles. But
I was gonna let you have it.
yeah. I learned that they were called something else. Oh, gherkins. They're called gherkins here.
I won't be using that.
Yeah, no, me either. Sorry. I prefer pickles. And then at night I went and watched some college football with some other friends in my program. So that was really cool.
Cool.
I watched it was the Texas game, UT Austin, um, Hook'em Horns. That which also
This is also the gang sign for a Latin gang in Chicago. So don't be
cool.
careful doing this
Okay.
everywhere.
Okay. I'll just do the llama instead. Yeah, which also they'll be in Austin this coming weekend for the US Grand Prix. Very excited about that. But we'll
Mhm.
cover that next weekend
Yeah,
when it happens. So
and we'll have some preview at the end, like always. Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, and then yesterday I just kind of relaxed. I feel like I've been just spiraling a little bit, adjusting to grad school. So yeah, I just took it very easy yesterday and it was very needed.
Yeah, we had a bit of an off-camera discussion about grad school for Megan. I've thought about doing it for a couple years now, but she might have scared me off a little bit.
It's fine. It's fine. It's just like it's yeah, I said like I could never do work and grad school now having been in grad school for a few
Yeah.
weeks. I also feel like I'm getting sick again, which is not great. Don't recommend that. It's my second time being sick in a month, so I'm kind of just tired from that. But it happens when you move across country, I guess.
Yeah.
So in terms of new news, there really wasn't too much. We're gonna talk about the cost cap, of course, but I'm gonna go through a few minor things quick. Yeah. For those who aren't watching, Juan just nearly punched his camera.
I'm mad.
But yeah. So McLaren, they'll have two test drivers at the U.S. Grand Prix, Alex Palou and Pato O'Ward. I hope I said Alex's last name right. I'm not great with pronunciations, but both are IndyCar drivers, with Pato currently driving for the McLaren IndyCar team. Awesome young driver from Mexico. Highly recommend following him in IndyCar if you're not already. He finished seventh in the standings this year, and then Alex as well. He's very impressive. He's with Chip Ganassi and he finished fifth in the IndyCar standings. So I'm excited to see how they do during practice. Pato, I know a lot of people would love to see in F1. He seems to be comfortable with IndyCar because he signed a multi-year contract to stay with the team. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, pretty impressive. And then Haas also announced that they'll be having a press conference on Thursday, the 20th. So just a few days away. And that'll be leading up to the US Grand Prix. There's some speculation on what that could be about. I more likely think it's about a new sponsor. Of course, as we know, they had dropped Crawley because of the ongoing issues or ongoing war with Russia and Ukraine. So they haven't had a title sponsor really. So I'm assuming it'll be about a sponsorship, but some people also think it'll be an announcement on the second driver or second seat for next year, which will either be Mick or Hulkenberg. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, we could
It's
talk
in
about that with Mick.
yeah, but and then we can of course talk about the FIA cost cap issue. So essentially it was confirmed that Red Bull did go over the cost cap. They tried to excuse it, saying that it was, food that went over. It's I saw a really great graphic where it was like they had everything piled on, so like um the car and then like building stuff, etc., and then groceries was like in the middle, and they
Mhm.
just like took the grocery section and put it on top and were like, see, that's what went over.
Yeah, I want to start by just saying that before we even get into like possible penalties, what ramifications
Hmm.
were, precedents,
Right.
all that, because this is opening a can of worms. And I first want to talk about the excuse that they went over on food, catering, and
Hmm.
employee salaries, because that's just a garbage excuse. If
Yeah.
there are, five things that go under the cost cap: the car, the building, the catering, all that
Right.
stuff. If you go over the cost cap, you don't get to say what you went over on because
Right.
they're all under the cost cap. If you spent
Yeah.
5 million more dollars on catering, which one, what the hell are you ordering? If you went over $5 million on catering, that means you spent 5 million more dollars on the other stuff
Other stuff. Yeah.
than you should have. And I don't know why they thought that, you know, that was going to be a excuse to, just be like, it's no big deal. It wasn't on the actual
Hmm.
car. But if you spend 5 million more on something else, that means
Hmm.
you have 5 million more to spend on something.
And the whole, misinterpreting or not fully understanding that, rule about what could go over or not, or what was excusable. It doesn't matter, like you said, but then also they met 2 years ago to discuss things like that and to make sure everyone had very, very clear understanding of what the rules were going to be. So to say now that, there was this misunderstanding or whatever, that's not excusable. Like
And
you've known for years now.
and the
So
rest of the teams did not have that misunderstanding. So
Yeah.
it's not a misunderstanding if it's just you. That's just a blatant disregard. Because Aston
Right.
Martin, even I think that theirs was like a minor, just like a
Hmm.
very small infraction. I don't even think it was like as big of a deal as Red Bull's.
Yeah.
Um, I and then so this can go into a wider discussion of punishment, precedent, all that, because what I think is for years, I mean, it's no secret that for years,
Hmm.
almost a decade, Mercedes was just winning championship after championship after championship, and Red Bull
Hmm.
was the closest to them, and they were just every year giving it all, and they just couldn't do it. And you get to the last year of a set of regulations, and it just kind of seems like they said, all right, we couldn't get them. What if we just spend a little more money? What's the worst that's going to happen? We don't win again.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they tried to play the FIA's hand and say, all right, we're going to go over, we're going to win. What are you going to do about it? Because
Yeah.
I know it seems drastic to go back and retroactively take away a championship, but if, and I don't even know that I think they should, but if they
Mhm.
don't, what precedent does that send? That, oh, you can spend more and it doesn't matter and you can win.
Well, and that's what Toto was saying too. He's like, if this is what, if just an extra fine is all you're getting punished for, then who's to say we can't do it? If
Yes.
Mercedes has the budget to pay a fine, they'll just budget that into it and then go over the budget because you have to hold these people accountable. And the FIA, which we've talked about, is not great at accountability. And I think to me, it doesn't make sense to go backwards. I think they need to look at future implications for this because that is things that you can control, right? Like you can't control what's happened in the past anymore. That's done. But what you can control is the budget for Red Bull next year. Maybe they have whatever they overspent in 2021, they now have to spend less of in 2023 because otherwise, yeah, it's got to be something like that where it's impacting them in the future so that it prevents them from wanting to do it because it's going to hurt their chances next year when the teams are starting to all, catch up like Ferrari and Mercedes.
Mm-hmm. I I didn't realize how like heated I was about this. And then I like thought about it more and I was like, no, like that the championship last year was so close that
Mm-hmm.
going over $5 million, I mean,
Makes a difference.
it just was the difference.
Yeah.
If they did not overspend, they probably would have lost.
And it's, yeah.
Like I struggle a bit going on F1 Twitter. Red Bull has some of the worst fans I've ever seen on there. They are
Yeah.
the worst group of fans, and I will say it with my chest. I don't think we have enough Red Bull fans listening for them to make a big deal out of it. They have a weird obsession with Mercedes. They have a weird obsession. Here's the thing. Here is what it is. All right, I'll stop rambling after this. Red Bull fans and even Max fans to an extent, they think they're the good guys, and I don't think anyone else sees it that way.
That's fair. That's a really
And
great analogy. Yeah.
and I think that I think that them trying to brush it off, they're trying to brush it off, be like, oh, like, no, this isn't a big deal. This isn't a big deal. It is. It is.
Mhm.
Like, no one's favorite team is Red Bull except for them.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, again, it's that precedent. Like whether you think it was serious or not, or whether you're trying to say, oh, it was only over budgeting on groceries or whatever, like it doesn't, again, like it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you knew the law, you went against it and did your own thing anyways. And now there has to be consequences. And you would want the same for another team. If Mercedes went 5,000 or 5 million over, you wouldn't hear the end of it from Horner. So you can't go and try and blow it off this time.
And if, the FIA just gives them a fine or like a
Mhm.
public reprimand and that's the punishment, I don't think the other teams realize what an unlimited money Mercedes team would do to the rest of the field.
Oh, yeah.
They would win the next 10 championships in a row.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, and I mean,
And that's why the cost cap was brought in.
exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I think they're taking a little too long as well. Again, from a PR perspective, they're just not handling this quick enough, I think. And maybe they're just trying to make the right decision by taking this extra time. I just hope that that's the case. Like, I genuinely hope that it's taking this long because they're really trying to make the best decision that's going to enforce teams to want to follow it moving forward. Because I mean, they have to do something. They can't just it can't just be a monetary fine. It can't just be a, don't do this again. It has to be something more significant.
Man, I got flustered there.
I know.
Oh man, I'm a little sweaty.
It's like just take a breather.
Yeah. God damn. Anyways.
Well, we're gonna do this TikTok bit now.
Oh
That'll
yeah.
liven it up. So I'm going to talk it through on how I think it should go because, of course, the TikTok essentially that we're going to be doing, it was off of a sound, and I don't think I can play the sound because I'll also have to show the photos at the same time. But you essentially, there's a bunch of questions like, oh, show your first favorite driver, your second favorite driver, your third favorite, and then like your team and etc. And then so it'll be like a 1, 2, 3, and then we reveal. And then, if you want to talk about it or laugh or whatever, we can do it. I don't laugh. I will say I had a very hard time picking my top 3 drivers. So I just went by kind of like when I started, like the first drivers I started following because there were so many I really enjoy. But anywho,
I'll make a note for my third favorite driver because it was close.
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
So okay, so first favorite driver, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, you can't see him. It's Lewis
Is
Hamilton.
that Lewis? Yeah, Daniel was the first one I ever heard of. So
yeah, I think that's a good enough reason.
So all right, second favorite driver, 3, 2, 1.
It's Checo. I don't know why mine's not showing up. Why am I tapping that? Oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Third favorite driver. I don't think. Do you have any guesses?
For your third favorite driver?
Yeah.
I already forgot who your second was. Remind me again.
Second was Charles.
Okay. Third favorite. Oh, it's Mick. Mick or Seb. One of those two.
Okay.
All right. So it was Seb. You have a horrible poker face.
I do. I can't. I'm sorry. Anyone who knows me, I can't lie to save my life. I can't hold my emotions. I
said Seb's name and you went. All right.
Okay, cool. Good to know. 3, 2, 1.
It's Daniel Ricciardo. You still can't see him on my screen.
All right.
I wanted to say Carlos Sainz is a close fourth for me.
I was gonna say Carlos Sainz is my fourth. It was really I want to do 2 Ferrari people, but I was just
my 4 favorite drivers I like a lot more than the rest of the grid. So those Carlos fits in that group I really like a lot.
Yep. Okay, so what was it? Was like a group next.
It was
or like
favorite friendship.
Favorite friendship. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
It's who's that?
It's
the
Twitch quartet.
The Twitch quartet. This is let me get close. Can I? Oh, almost. No, you can't see it. It's Lewis and Bottas.
Oh, they're such a good duo.
Yeah, they are. And this picture is Bottas presenting Lewis the painting of him with him naked at the bottom. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. That's good. All right, favorite team boss. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, Toto. Mine is also Toto.
Yeah,
it's Toto. A white screen, but it's Toto.
It's just
man, I wonder when mine's not working.
I'm honestly surprised. I thought you were gonna say Gunther Steiner. So
he's funny, but no, Toto's hot.
Yeah, he is. He's a hot all around. Just he's great. Definitely. If there's like one person of like all of those bosses that we could interview or meet, it would be him. 100%. Such a cool history, and his wife. Super impressive background. But Okay, favorite team. Three, two, one.
That's Mercedes.
Ah, okay. I was like, genuinely, it all looks white.
Yeah, for our audio listeners, we're holding up the pictures to our cameras, and for some reason, mine are just not showing up on screen. So I'm just playing along and just announcing. Megan's was Ferrari.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna add text. So if you follow our social medias, you'll just see that
At
then.
Break
So
Check F1, all socials.
yeah, all socials. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Follow our TikTok. Thanks. Okay, favorite racetrack? Yeah, favorite track. Okay, three, two, one. Oh, hang on.
Oh, that one showed up. It is Abu Dhabi for me.
Ah, that's cool. Mine is spa, which I'm
Mm,
going to
hell yeah, that's
hopefully.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, favorite wag, which also I think we both had to look into this because I only knew like two. Ready? Three, two, one.
Oh, all right, mine's not showing up, but yours was Alex Albon's girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah.
I do not know any of the wives or girlfriends on the grid, and I'm not particularly interested in it. So mine was a picture of Pierre and Yuki.
Aw, that's cute. Yeah, mine was Lily because her and just Alex in general seem like people I would actually like. They're just reminding me of friends in my real life.
Yeah.
And you see her all the time on the Williams. She's always in like the Williams videos and stuff.
Yeah.
But she's a professional golfer, so very
Oh,
cool. Yeah,
sick. Alex
yeah.
Albon, he's so nice.
He just they're he's so sweet.
And he's gonna destroy whoever's his teammate next year.
I know. Oh,
Even if
how
it's
are we
Mick.
already? uh oh, him and I honestly like him and Mick as teammates would be really interesting because you don't see them really interact, and they're both nice guys, but Alex is a lot more aggressive on the grid. But I will get into Mick's history, and it is kind of surprising. So team history. So Haas was the first American constructor to submit an F1 entry after the failed US F1 project in 2010, which it's not worth going into. It was just a bunch of ex bosses, other workers for other teams that wanted to do a US specific team, similar to what Andretti wants to do, where they want it very US made, etc. But the project failed in 2010, so this was the first official one. So following the collapse of Marissa F1 during that 2014 season, they were auctioning off their assets. Has purchased the team's Banbury headquarters and some of those assets as well to serve as their forward base for their operations. Now, they do have an operation based out in the US too, but they wanted the Banbury one that's based in the UK just because it's closer to many of the races that are happening in Europe. So if there's like car damage and etc., it's just a lot cheaper and easier that way. Um, but because they were unrestricted to testing regulations until their official entry in F1, they had a lot of time to kind of set that car up for the official preseason testing in Barcelona in early 2016. So while they were building out their team, Haas approached an Italian manufacturer, Dallara, to build their chassis and have their power unit supplied by Ferrari. So their power unit is still today powered by Ferrari. This is also when former Jaguar and Red Bull Racing technical director Gunther Steiner came on to the team as team principal, who is still there today. In January of 2016, the car passed the mandatory FIA crash testing, and then its time in F1 kind of began. But there was already a lot of controversy when it entered F1, which we're going to be doing a deeper dive on some of the Haas history and partnerships later on after the season. Yeah, for the first few years, they faced a lot of backlash. Firstly, with their partnership with Ferrari in 2018 has faced some backlash because their car seemed to copy the 2017 Ferrari model. So there's been a lot of kind of issue, a lot of teams, or not a lot of teams, a couple of teams, especially McLaren and then Renault, now Alpine, had issues with the Haas team because they felt like it was unjustifiably just like too close to that team and they don't like that B team strategy. But the director of motorsports, Ross Bronze, he wants to protect that B team strategy because it allows for teams with smaller budgets to enter and remain in the sport, which I personally think it's a good idea too. It's just it allows more people to be in the sport, and even though it is exclusive, I feel like 10 teams is not, a significantly high number. So by
Mhm.
removing that B team strategy, you would have, at least 3 or 4 teams off of the grid.
Yeah,
But then the first season in 2016 was with drivers Romain Grosjean and Esteban Gutierrez. So at the debut race, Grosjean finished sixth, and he was the first American constructor to win points in the first F1 race, and the first constructor since Toyota Racing in 2002 to record points in their debut. So also they looked strong from the beginning. Gutierrez, though, had a bit of a different end to his debut race. He in the first race, he destroyed Alonso's McLaren and caused the race to be temporarily red flagged. Gutierrez didn't have a great season, so he was only with the team for the first year. But with Haas in general, similar to what even we saw this year, was they had a great start and they had points early on in the first few races, but then kind of fell off pace throughout the rest of the season. So in their first year, they only scored points 3 more times after Bahrain, which was that second race.
that
So
sounds familiar.
I was like, this sounds a little too familiar.
Yeah.
But Kevin Magnussen replaced Gutierrez. We're going to talk more about Kevin's history. Juan's going to cover it after the history, but that's when Kevin joined the team, and it was Kevin and Grosjean through 2020. So 2018 was the best season for the team, where they finished fifth in the constructors, the worst being last year with no points in 10th place. But in 2019, I wanted to call out that the team had taken on Rich Energy, which is a British energy drink company that had been previously linked to Purchasing Force India, and they were their title sponsor. However, during that year, Rich Energy faced numerous legal issues during the year and had been found guilty of plagiarizing the logo of a bicycle manufacturer called White Bikes. So in September, a day after the Italian Grand Prix, Rich Energy announced that they were terminating their deal with the Haas F1 team with immediate effect. So, yeah, we'll also be talking a little bit more about that partnership and everything. And at the end of the season, we'll talk about it, once we get closer to that. But yeah, so then in 2020, Haas also had some crazy events happen. You'll see in Drive to Survive, there's a horrific accident with Romain Grosjean it was like a few races before. It was late in the season. I can't remember exactly which race, but he miraculously survived the car crash. His car essentially split in half. It was entirely engulfed in flames. He suffered burns on his hands, but he was also very clear that the halo protection, which had only just been installed maybe that year or the year prior, is likely what had saved his life. So it was one of the first few instances after that installment where we really saw the impact of it. So huge moment, and just
Yeah.
F1 in general.
The Halo has saved like 4 people's lives so far.
Crazy. It's crazy. Uh, but yeah, so then the team faced more backlash when they started partnering with Ukrali, Russian fertilizer producer, where Nikita Mazepin, the former F1 driver and Haas driver, his father's, he had a large share of that company. So that's essentially how Nikita got his F1 seat. But then due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, has removed the branding of the Russian sponsor from the cars, the Russian flag, and then Nikita from his F1 seat in early 2022 prior to the start of the season. So now today, they're currently in 8th place, tied with AlphaTauri. There's only 10 points that separate Kevin and Mick, with Kevin being in 14th in the driver's standings and Mick in 16th. And then notable drivers, Kevin Magnussen.
Romain Grosjean.
Yeah, I got you throw
Mick
him in there too.
Schumacher.
Yeah.
For those unfamiliar with Nikita Mazepin, he was worse than Latifi.
I genuinely like it's so him and Drive to Survive made it even more embarrassing, I think, for him than just like not participating at all.
Yeah.
I think part of me thinks he wanted to participate so people got to know him a little bit better, but part of me thinks he should have not, because you see, especially in Drive to Survive, him being like not understanding why Mick was doing so much better. And it was like, because he's just better. Like you're not getting it. He doesn't have a different car.
let me be the one, like let me say, Mick was destroying him. And
Yeah.
we see Mick struggling a bit this year. Mick
Mhm,
was obliterating Nikita Mazepin. Mazepin is the worst F1 driver,
mhm.
I think, of the last like 5-10 years.
I 100% agree.
Haas is an American team. I hold it up in
Mhm.
air quotes.
Yeah.
I I don't know what's American about them anymore.
I mean, they don't have American drivers, they don't have American sponsorships, they don't have most of their stuff is done in the UK office anyway. So like the whole idea of it being an American team because what Gene Haas his name is on it.
Yeah,
I no. Put Andretti in the field, please.
literally. Yeah, no. I'm very. I would be an Andretti supporter
Oh yeah, 100%.
if they
I want
joined.
Colton Herta, partially because I really want Colton Herta to have the seat, but also
Yeah,
I really like the Andretti IndyCar team.
yeah.
Yeah, no, the Andretti at Formula E team. They're my favorite Formula E team. So
Oh, sick.
also I do plan to go to that in Silverstone. I
Oh,
met some
sweet. Yeah,
other Formula One fans in my program, so hopefully we can get like a group or something to go. But
that would be awesome. Um, yeah. So Haas, they're a bit of main. If you watch Drive to Survive, they're a bit of main characters.
mhm,
They are in it pretty regularly. Gunther is a fan favorite, rightfully so. Gunther is great.
yeah,
I like him
pure
a lot.
entertainment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pure entertainment. What is he? What did he say? We look like fucking wankers.
Yeah. That meme is still trending to this day.
Yep. Um. Yeah. So should we get into Kevin and Mick?
Yeah. You want to kick it off with Kevin?
Yeah, we'll kick it off with Kevin. So let me pull up my notes right here. So Kevin Jan Magnuson. I imagine it's Jan. I think it's Jan, not John.
Yeah.
So Kevin Jan Magnuson, born October 5th, 1992. He is recently 30 years old. His father Jan is a four-time Le Mans winner and a former F1 driver in his own
Oh,
right.
oh,
He,
that's cool.
yeah,
I
Kevin
didn't know
got his
that.
start in the McLaren Young Driver program. So he was originally a McLaren youth. And he currently, I thought this was interesting. Kevin Magnuson currently lives in Dubai. That
Does
is
he
his home
really?
base. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I
Yeah.
did not know that.
So he is Danish. So he is from Denmark. So
Mhm.
he drives under the Danish flag. So I'll get into his early career. Like every driver on the grid, he started in karting. He was good at it. I will move on to in 2008, he got his single seater start in Formula Ford in Denmark. So he
Mhm.
won 11 out of the 15 races and the championship, which then prompted him to move to Formula Renault 2.0 in 2009. And his team was Moto Park Academy. Continued success at that level. 2010 moved to Formula 3 in Germany. So he was still with Motor Park Academy, and he won his first race in F3, and then he
Mhm.
won two more later in the season, finishing third in the championship. So something you'll see with Kevin, he had a pretty. We talk a lot about drivers kind of earning their way into F1. He definitely did. He worked his way up the kind of lower series ladder. So then after his initial Formula 3 season, he moved to F3 in Britain. So he raced for Carlin and he had 7 wins that season and he was the championship runner up. So again, steadily improving, steadily, putting down impressive performances, race wins, all that. He also in 2011, he competed in the Masters of F3 race at Zandvoort, which I don't know if you remember. At the time, it was like the unofficial F3 championship because F3 was not very
Mhm.
unified. And this was actually the race that Botas was the two-time winner of, and he became like
Oh,
the first one.
okay.
So Kevin actually finished third at this race. In 2012, he moved to Formula Renault 3.5, once again with Carlin, finished seventh in the championship, and he did get a couple of poles and a win, but a bit of a tougher year for him. But the next year, he moved to the Dams racing team, which has come up a couple times, I believe, with
Mhm.
some of these drivers, and he got 5 wins, 8 other podiums besides for those wins, and 8 poles,
Wow.
won the championship, and was 60 points clear of second place.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
So he was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So he then in 2014 moved to Formula One. So, like I said, his single seater career started in 2008. It spanned 6 years. He went through Formula Ford, Formula Three, two series of Formula
Mm-hmm.
Three, Formula Renault for 2 years. So I think he had a lot of experience. I think he definitely
Mm-hmm.
earned his way into F1.
You know, now that you're mentioning this, I think what would be, and you can also cut this if you want, what would be really interesting to do during the break is an episode on the incoming rookies, especially because in the case that Logan Sargent does enter F1 this year, I'm really curious what his like. I would love to read more on what his background is because I want to see how it compares to some of these other drivers because he's young and everyone thinks he's going to be like, yeah, like that great, well experienced, but how
Yeah,
much background does he really have? Because Kevin Magnussen, he spent so much time in some of
yeah,
these single seater seats. So versus I remember Yuki's, his was a few years, but I think maybe
yeah.
half the amount of time. So
Right. Yeah. No, I'll keep that in. I think this is a great
mhm,
idea. It's I that has turned into a topic that I think we talk about a lot because I think it's
mhm.
important to talk about is drivers earning their way and just being ready to race in an F1 car.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, his Formula One start came in 2014 with McLaren. As I said, he was a McLaren youth driver.
Mhm.
He replaced Checo, who, if we remember, had a bumpy year with McLaren, just
Yeah.
1 year, which we'll see with McLaren is a bit of a trend.
Mhm.
Drivers go
Mhm.
there and kind of have some trouble. Kevin has a bit of a run in with McLaren as well.
Mhm.
So he replaced Checo. His first race ever, he finished third and then was promoted to second after Daniel Ricciardo was disqualified for, I believe, a fuel regulation issue, which is not something we see anymore because they don't fill up fuel during races.
Mhm.
Uh, he Kevin was actually the first driver to podium in his debut race since Lewis in 2007.
Good for him. I did not
Yeah.
know that.
So I thought that was
Huh.
pretty cool. And then
Yeah.
throughout the year, he had 11 more point finishes. And then in 2015, McLaren replaced him with Fernando Alonso, and he became their reserve driver.
That's so mean.
Yeah. So
Uh,
there was a lot of rumors that whole year outside of F1 that he could go, especially to IndyCar. He seemed to like be getting a lot of
mhm.
traction. And he actually nearly signed. I think a deal was in place with Andretti for him to race IndyCar, and then McLaren blocked the move and didn't let him go. And then eventually, at the end of the season, McLaren dropped him anyways.
See, I really, I was really into the McLaren hype for like a hot minute, especially during Drive to Survive and, when they signed Danny Rick. They're really digging themselves a grave. I don't know anymore.
Yeah, they don't do themselves any favors, and they have a big American fan base, McLaren.
Hmm.
I don't know how or why that has ended up, but a lot of the American F1 fans that I know personally are McLaren fans.
Hmm.
Uh, and they just don't help themselves. And Americans are pretty, especially lately, Americans who follow sports are more like athlete centric, like they kind of follow athletes around.
Right. Hmm.
So I think if they keep treating drivers like this, I mean, how many fans
Hmm.
are they going to lose with Daniel? You know?
Right. That's also a really good point that I would love to look more into because it is true, like Americans, when most of our sports, anyways, you typically follow the driver or not the driver, just like the athlete. So
Yeah.
even in football or basketball or something, you would start to support that team. So I'm curious how that is in Europe as well, if people have like the ride or die teams or if it's more athlete focused.
What I
That would
have
be
found, yeah, what I have found in Europe is people ride or die for their teams,
mhm.
like
Like
to the
Ferrari.
death. Yes, yes,
Ferrari fans are the toughest fans I think of any of them. I mean, also they have the oldest fan base,
yeah,
oldest
yeah.
team, but still.
And just a quick aside on that, something I have seen and is very prevalent in the NBA. So now a lot of most of the best players are foreign internationals. They are from
Hmm.
overseas, and international players have a tendency to stick with the teams that drafted them for their
Mhm.
whole careers over American players. So I think it is definitely a more team-based focus
Yeah.
outside of the US.
Well, like Giannis, and not to go into an entirely different sport,
No, yeah.
but Giannis, who plays for the Bucks, in Wisconsin, I don't see him really leaving the Bucks
No,
ever. I think he's just like,
he
it's one and
signed
done for him.
he signed a 5-year extension last year. So
Oh, did he? Okay,
he's there through like 2028 or something like that. He signed the richest deal in NBA history. So
good for him.
yeah. So yeah, McLaren screwed him over. Not something uncommon that we haven't seen before. Something we're going through now. Something it seemed. I know Checo went through it. Fernando Alonso to a point went through it. Lewis to a point went through it.
Yeah.
It's a continued trend, and I think eventually you kind of have to see that maybe the team is the common denominator.
Yeah. I think Carlos is the only driver in the last like 10 years who left more on their own accord without
Yeah,
really having issues with the team. It was just a better opportunity. So
yeah.
good for him.
No, McLaren just likes to be the one to break up with people. They don't know how to,
Mhm.
handle themselves when they get broken up with. So yeah, he almost went to IndyCar, was not allowed. Then McLaren cut him anyways. So then in 2016, he went to Renault. Again, there was a lot of rumors that he was not going to be an F1. He was going to be an IndyCar, but eventually signed with Renault after Pastor Maldonado and Renault breached their contract. So they had an open seat. He took it. He was paired with rookie Jolyon Palmer, who I actually do recognize. If anyone ever uses the F1 app, he is one of the main commentators on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So his early season was plagued by a lot of incidents. He had some tire punctures. He one time missed the weight bridge during practice and he had to start from the pit lane. He had to start from the pit lane another time later in the season. He had many crashes, like a lot. And he had a gearbox failure as well that retired him. So a string of tough breaks that season. Not the best. His best finish was 7th at the Russian Grand Prix, and that was his year at Renault.
Oh man.
Who, for our older F1 fans and for people who are maybe watching Drive to Survive, Renault used to be a pretty good team, and they still
Yeah.
are with Alpine. They're quick. They are usually of the better midfield teams. So very surprising that they had a down year there.
Yeah.
And then 2017, he joined Haas and he was paired with Romain Grosjean. The car was not very competitive his first year, but he managed a 7th place at Azerbaijan. Later that season, so he had an incident with Nico Hulkenberg. I think they collided, and Nico, after the race, said that Kevin was the most unsporting driver on the grid, right? To which Kevin responded, quote, direct quote, suck my balls.
That's maturity.
So that caught me off guard because he does not seem the kind of guy to say or act like that. I did research it a little bit, and it seems that it is of the more regrettable moments of his career. He does not like that it is one of the things that he is remembered by. But yeah,
Fair.
word for word, he told Nico Hulkenberg to suck his balls.
Brilliant.
This also kind of sets a trend. Kevin has a lot of run-in with a couple other drivers. I'll mention some of them, later throughout his career. He finished 2017 and 14th with 19 points, 9 points behind Grosjean. So Grosjean beat them in their first year together, but first year in the new car, some adjustments to be made. 2018 was still with Haas. I guess I don't have to keep saying that. He's been with Haas since, except for his off year. So the car in 2018 was much, much better. It was competitive. He opened the first race in 5th, which was Haas's highest ever starting position, which I think might be to this day as well. He had many point finishes that year I might be missing some, but I know Bahrain, Spain, France, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Brazil, Abu Dhabi, all were point finishes. I might have missed a couple. And then late at one point throughout the season, he collided with Pierre And Pierre actually said he had that Kevin was easily the most dangerous guy he's ever raced against.
Wow.
So
That's
another
especially
driver. Yeah.
especially too when you have Romain on the
Yeah.
same track as you.
Who quick side note, I think Romain is in IndyCar, right?
Yeah. Nah.
No,
Is
or
it
NASCAR.
NASCAR?
NASCAR. He's in NASCAR.
Yes.
And I
Yeah. And
believe he crashes a lot. I think the other
yeah,
drivers don't like him.
no, he constantly is causing issues on track, and you just hear them pissed off because
Yeah.
he's just there in their way again and like swerving and hitting walls and then blames everyone else.
And I
Yeah.
will say crashes are handled a lot different in NASCAR than F1. They
Mhm.
fight so much in NASCAR. Just fist
Yeah.
fight each other.
There was a clip I saw right before this of a fight yesterday that happened in NASCAR. I don't remember who it was because I don't watch it, but I just know there was someone was like, "Ah."
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
gets a little spicy over there. After colliding with Pierre, he also had some problems on track with Alonso, and he said of Alonso that quote he thinks he's God, and quote I can't wait for him to retire, which never
That's
happened.
a or my feelings.
Yeah, so that was pretty direct pointed words. I hope he's not waiting for Fernando to retire still, because
No.
it's been 6 years since that. So um he also had some on-track incidents that year with Charles, and Charles went on radio to call him quote stupid.
Well, like it was gonna be this like whole sentence.
Mm-hmm. So he finished 2018 ninth with 56 points, 19 points clear of Grosjean. Kevin
Mhm.
Magnussen, definitely the better driver of the two. I think only that first year Grosjean beat him. He ends
Mhm.
up beating him the rest of the time. Uh, as we have said a couple times, Romain Grosjean, a bit of a risky driver, crashes.
Mhm. Like a
Um,
firecracker
yeah,
on the grid. Yeah.
yeah. So in 2019, the
Not to
car. Yeah, no, hey, oh, that's
it's
a
like not to
little
actually reference the fire.
Um, for those who don't know, Romain Grosjean once lit on fire on track.
He was the man on fire.
um,
Um
2019, the car was once again uncompetitive. He finished in 16th place with 20 points, still ahead of Grosjean by like 12 points, I think. 2020 would be both him and Grosjean's last year on the team. They would be replaced by Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. Um, Interesting, because I don't think either driver is better than Kevin or Grosjean, but I do
mhm.
understand that they had to see what they had in Mick, because Mick was a part of the Ferrari Young Driver program. Obviously, Haas being a bit of their B team. So
Mhm.
Kevin was out for a year. 2022, Kevin got brought back to be paired with Mick Schumacher after Mazepin was dropped. Once again, Nikita Mazepin, the worst F1 driver in recent history. Um, this year, Haas in general, especially Kevin, started off
Mhm.
hot, cooled off, a bit of a yearly trend for them. Uh, they're powered by Ferrari, so their engine we know is fast. The car is generally pretty fast, but they do not have that much money. So as the year goes on, teams get upgrades. They just don't really.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where they are today. I think, like you said, they are eighth in the constructors at the moment. I forgot
Mhm.
to look up what place Kevin is, but he is 10 points clear of Mick,
14th.
14 points clear of Mick.
No, he's 14th
He's
place.
14th place, 10 points clear of Mick. All right, there it is. Third time's the charm. Yeah, that is Kevin Magnussen's career. I think he will be around next year. He's shown to
Mhm.
be a pretty good leader. I think as he has matured as well, maybe less on track incidents with people.
I think he's learned from now being out a year to kind of keep his temper cool,
Yeah.
which I think is good. It's also kind of funny because I feel like he came in because he was only announced like less than a month before the season started. It was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks before the season
Mhm.
started. So he came in and had points really early on and then has just pretty much coasted the rest of the season. Like he's never too far up, never too far down. He does have a lot of car issues. I don't think the car is super reliable, but
Yeah.
hopefully they have a good season next year. Hopefully Mick is still on the team. We'll see. So Mick Schumacher, he was born March 22nd, 1999, which makes him 23 years old. He was born in Switzerland, grew up in Switzerland, but drives under the German flag because he's German. His number is 47, both because 4 and 7 are his favorite numbers. And also I had seen that he chose it as it reads 4, 7, and 7 had belonged to his dad when he was in F1. So that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is.
Um, and then on that too, just a little bit about some of his family history. He has 2 family members who have driven in Formula One. His father, who is a 7-time world champion. The only other person with that record is Lewis Hamilton. And he is one of the most iconic or most notable drivers in Formula One history. There is a documentary. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it does talk about a bit of his history. It's quite interesting. So I highly recommend. But he also, Michael Schumacher, his brother, Ralph, was also in Formula One partially at the same time. I think I have it noted earlier or later on, but I'm just going to call it out now since I'm already talking about it. And it's that if you've noticed when you're watching the race and they have all of the drivers like on the side, on the left-hand side, and it has like their times and like where they are currently in the race, it's always by the first three letters of their last name. So like Hamilton, HAM, but Mix is different. Mix is MSC, which is his first name's first initial, and then the first 2 of his last name. And the reason he wanted this specifically was because it was the same way his dad was referred to when he raced in Formula One, because at the time his brother Ralph was also in it, and you couldn't have 2 SCHs at the same time. You had to differentiate. So one was, MSC, and one was RSC. So it was another way for Mick to kind of make a note to his dad. So
yeah, that's cute.
So that was, yeah. And then and I do also want to say that Mick is quite private about his family's history, because his dad had suffered an accident in 2013, a year after he had finally retired from Mercedes in 2012. And so I see a lot of times that people will bring up, Michael's health and ask, even like sometimes ask Mick and stuff. And I think it's important to respect people's family privacy and, just personal lives, because regardless of Michael's popularity, he doesn't owe his health, to anyone. So I always find that kind of weird when people kind of try and force those conversations. But anywho, when Mick started racing in 2008, or his motorsport career in 2008, he said he didn't want the attention of being the son of Michael Schumacher, so he started racing under his mother's maiden name, Bech. I hope I pronounced that right. But in the ADAC karting masters during 2011 and 2012, he finished 9th and 7th respectively. So it's kind of in that top 10 range. But then in the Euro Winter Cup of 2011 and 2012, so those same years, he finished 3rd. So he was doing better in some than others. But in 2014 is when he started going by Mick Jr. And then he started in the international and national junior championships for karting. So he ended in 2nd in all of the championships that year. And even without the use of his surname, he started to kind of get picked up early on by the international press.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is Mick's real name Michael?
No, it's Mick.
Okay.
And it's after, I believe it's after someone else, like a close family friend and a other former motorsport driver. So I don't remember if it was someone that Michael was close to. I think it might have been a friend, like a close family friend, but his name was Mick, so that's where he gets his name.
Got it.
And then in 2014, at the end of that year, he did Formula 4 car testing with Genzer Motorsport, and then switched to the Formula Series in 2015. He was racing with the Van Amersfoort racing team, but then shortly after switched to the Prima Power team, which, if anyone knows, Prima is really known for its Ferrari Lynx. It's where a lot of their reserve drivers have driven for, whether it's in Formula 2, Formula 3, so on. So he started with them pretty early on. He also competed in the Italian Formula 4 championship. He finished runner-up in both of those championships that they had. And then that 2015 year is also when he entered into motorsport, finally using the Schumacher name.
Cool.
So, and yeah, in Formula Three, he started racing in Formula Three in a smaller series in India in 2016. He finished third with 4 wins, 9 podiums, and 2 poles. He was ahead of the notable Formula Two drivers like Yuri Vips and Felipe Drugovich, which Felipe, I believe, is the one who had signed with Aston Martin as a part of their academy. So another driver to watch. But in 2017 is when he made his FIA Formula 3 debut again with Prima. And he finished that season in 12th place out of 28 drivers. And he was the third, his best was third in Monza. So I forget sometimes too that Formula, like some of these smaller Formula series have so many drivers because
Yeah.
not all of them are always racing. So sometimes like they'll only race 6 of the races. Sometimes they'll, do the whole season. But I remember looking and I was like, oh, okay, I'm still going.
Yeah.
Uh, he was also that year the third best rookie ranked out of 7. So not bad, pretty standard. Had a couple of impressive runs, but in 2018 he continued with Prima in Formula 3, and he did have a pretty slow start to the season. He took his first win in his 15th race that year. At the time, he was sitting in 10th place. And then after that, he managed to take 7 more wins the remainder of the season, and he ended up taking the championship 57 points clear of the runner-up. So not like an early contender at all for the championship, but once he had that win in him, he kind of took it running. So after that, he moved into Formula 2. So he stayed with Prima in 2019 when he moved into F2. He had points right away. And during the sprint race, during the second race, he had to start from 19th, but ended up going to 5th, which you'll notice that pattern quite a lot in his history is like he had all the like certain races where he had to start like really far in the back of the grid, but then would make it into the top 5, by the end of it. So he was not afraid of overtaking by any means, which is something that I thought was the most surprising in his history because you see him doing anything but overtaking during the race. Go.
Do you think he is better when there's less pressure?
100%.
Do you think maybe he's like starting from 20th, so it's like, oh, I'm not expected to do anything, so whatever he does doesn't matter, and then he does great?
Part of me thinks he needs more pressure. Part of me thinks people just need to back off because he
I will
has
not be
shown
doing
that
so.
because you see like in his history he was a Formula 3 champion, Formula 2 champion. He knows how to defend, which I'll get into. It's just I don't know what it is about being in Formula 1 that is like I don't know if he just isn't aggressive enough. It's an entirely different category, so it is a hard adjustment, I would say, but I don't know, you just think that he would have had that same like
Oomph.
feistiness. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so he let's see. Okay. But yeah, so his first season in Formula 2, he was kind of all over the place. If there weren't points for him, he was usually involved in collisions, half of them being his fault, half of them not, or spinning out. But he ended his first season in Formula 2 in 12th place with 53 points. He had 1 win and 1 fastest lap, and this was well ahead of his teammate. So not the greatest year, but still better than the people he was lined up against or next to. And then in 2019, he signed also with the Ferrari Driver Academy. So this was something, of course, he was very excited for. He spoke highly on. Of course, his dad had very close ties to Ferrari. He won multiple championships with them. So it was a very huge deal for him. Now I think he might be leaving the Ferrari Academy. It hasn't really been confirmed also. So no one really knows, but that is to be decided. And then in the 2020 season, he remained with Prima and drove alongside Robert Schwartzman. In the early on in the battle and early on in the season and at the end of the season, he was battling quite a lot with Callum Eott, who is a current IndyCar driver, also another good driver to follow if you don't watch IndyCar yet. There was a point though when Mike had 5 consecutive podiums from Spain to Monza, and one of those being wins. There was also a few instances where he started from below the top 10 and then made it into the top 5. But his worst qualifying ever in F2 was 18th at Sakir, but he still managed to move into sixth place and take fastest lap. So again, just really good at, overtaking and coming back when he needs to. But during the final race in the battle for first, he had to defend against Iap for quite a while because he had some tire issues really early on. And once he pitted for tires, he started to fall out of points. But he lucked out in the sense that Callum also started having the same issues that Mick was having. So then later had to pit and started dropping out points, which is how Mick was able to secure his championship in Formula 2.
Cool.
Yeah. And so, that of course was really impressive to Haas. And then with him also being part of the driver academy and wanting some fresh faces, he now entered Formula 1. So with Mick, he did testing with Ferrari at the end of the 2020 season before he started his Formula 1 career. And that way he was able to also get some testing just in a Formula 1 car. The Monday morning testing, he managed to put in the sixth fastest time during that session. And then the next day, in the morning session, he put in the second best lap, only 0.6 seconds behind Verstappen. So in the Ferrari, he was doing great. He said he felt comfortable. He felt at home. He was looking good for Haas and for Formula 1, and people were really excited. But of course, as we know, Haas was not a good team in 2021. It was like through halfway of the season before Mick finally made it into Q2 in qualifying. And Gunther had also made it clear that their focus was already on the 2022 car. They just wanted to survive 2021 is essentially what they were going for. So he was outperforming Nikita Mazepin pretty consistently. And that was only, if he wasn't being retired due to car issues, or there were a few instances with crashes as well. It's not like he was not crashing out. He still was crashing as well. But only half of the time it was his fault. So I like to make that clear because sometimes when you say they crash a lot, people think it's always them. That's not. So
Mick does crash a lot though.
I know he does. He does. And I will say this year it has largely been his fault. So but anyways, this year, he has scored 12 points and is fighting for his life / a seat in 2023. His first points were at the British Grand Prix. He finished 8th, and then the following weekend he finished 6th. So that was his best finish to date. And who knows, maybe he'll get points again at Austin. That's where we're at.
I think Mick might end up at Williams next year, if I'm being honest.
I would really like to see one. I think he needs to get out of Haas because I don't think they respect him anymore. And I don't think they're really trying to help him either. I mean, if you look at it, he has outperformed Kevin a couple of times in the last few races. And yet they're treating Mick as if he's dragging them like Nikita. And it's just not the case. So I think he would do a little bit better in a fresh setting, maybe just out of the whole Ferrari Haas thing in general, and get some, just a whole new team, fresh start. Plus, like having Albon as a teammate, he's such a friendly guy. I think they would work really well together.
Yeah, no, I agree. Correct me if I'm wrong. F2 champions, do they have to leave F2 after they win?
Yeah, so if you win Formula 2, you're not allowed to compete. You have to go into anything else.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's Kevin and that's Mick.
We have one more get to know after this, which is going to be McLaren, which we'll do.
Damn, how are we gonna partition that out?
I know.
You can do Daniel if you want. I'll do Lando, but I'm gonna be mean.
Don't be mean.
I'm not. I won't be mean. I just. I definitely am.
Partial.
Not even that. I am, and this is with all drivers. I think I am harsher on drivers than I am cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I know I do more than other people, but I do think, like, I mean, Lando hasn't. I just feel like Lando has been anointed a bit as like the next thing, and he has never won a race.
Yeah, it's hard because I think he has so much potential,
Yeah.
but one, I think partially McLaren needs to give him a better car, but then also I think it has to do a little bit with the maturity as well, because you saw his reason, half the reason he didn't win, or like he had such a bad time in Russia, when he was in the lead for most of the time, was because he just like let this anger get to him and like wasn't listening to his team, and
Yeah.
it backfired. But um I don't know. Lando, I don't not like him. I think he's a good driver and I think he has a lot of potential and he is kind of entertaining to watch, but at the same time that guy needs some PR training because he's going to dig himself a hole if he doesn't start watching how he speaks about other drivers and other people, because it's yeah.
Was recently at the club with new two-time champion Max Verstappen. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
saw that on social media.
Yeah.
We
He's
have
not making
the
his own music.
Max or Lando.
Lando, DJ Lando.
Okay, interesting. So does
Mhm.
Lewis. Lewis does as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Lando's more fashion, or what is it called? Where he shows it off a little bit more.
okay, wants it.
Flashy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We have the American Grand Prix coming up. Coda is a great track, an incredible track. This
I love it.
over the next few years,
Mhm.
uh, this is going to become the least popular American race, and
Which is
it's dumb because it's the best track.
it is the most American, I would say, if you're going to make, I mean, it's Texas, which is, as Americans, we know is like
Yeah,
the American state of all states. So they're just very homegrown, local source, supporting their team, supporting Made in Texas. It's also just a great, friendly Southern community, especially Austin. There's so much culture there. There's so much to see and do. It's going to be the most affordable F1 race in America because you have Las Vegas and Miami, which are both way overpriced and overhyped. Um,
and
I
Austin
don't
has
know.
really embraced the F1 community as well. Like they really like having the
Mm-hmm.
race, which Miami wanted nothing to do with it. The race isn't in
Right.
Miami.
Yeah.
Um, I I hope that as we get more and more or less American F1 races, I hope Coda and the American Grand Prix stays on the calendar.
I agree. Yeah.
Any predictions?
Let's see. I mean, I think Verstappen's gonna win. I think maybe George will get on the grid. Who is it that does really well at Coda? Oh, AlphaTauri. I think they're gonna be in points. One of them. I think
Hmm,
they usually do. I think Pierre usually does pretty well at Coda.
cool.
Or Yuki. I think either of them could be up there.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think so. Now that Red Bull has announced they will not be upgrading the car anymore, they have locked up both championships. I think Max is actually going to come back down to earth a little bit. I think him and Checo will be closer. So I think
Hmm.
both Red Bulls will be up there. I think I think both Red Bulls will podium. I think Charles and Lewis will probably battle out for the last podium spot, and then Carlos and George kind of bringing up the rear of the front.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna say Checo wins.
I don't think that, but
Well, he's got two race wins. How many race wins does Charles have this year?
so follow us on social media. We're at Break Check F1. We'll be posting some clips. The fun TikTok thing that'll be up there at some point. So
Hey,
see you there.
one last thing. I saw this online. I didn't realize it. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm
Mhm.
misremembering. I think Charles and Checo have the same amount of wins in their career,
That's so annoying.
or same amount
Because
of
Charles,
podiums or
because Charles
something.
is such a better driver.
I saw a graphic online, and I was like, "Wow, that is insane."
Damn. I mean, to be fair though, think of how long each driver has been in Formula One.
Think of how long each driver has been in Formula One in a fast car.
Thanks for listening.
This has been episode 32.
Yep, 32.
of Break Check, an F1 podcast. Follow us on all socials, like Megan said, at Break Check F1. See you next week for our American Grand Prix recap.